Yes, there are laws that govern the percentage of money paid in a construction contract. Mechanics lien laws protect contractors and subcontractors by giving them the right to file a lien against the property if they are not paid for their work or materials. Some states have specific limits on the amount of money that can be paid upfront before work begins. For example, California limits the down payment to 10% of the contract price unless the contractor provides a bond to protect the homeowner. Contract law states that contracts are legally binding agreements, and the terms of the contract will govern the percentage of money paid at each stage of the project. If the contract does not specify a payment schedule, the court may imply one based on industry standards or custom and usage. In the construction industry, it is common for contracts to specify payment in 3 stages. Firstly, 1/3 down payment upon signing the contract. Secondly, 1/3 after rough inspection. And thirdly, 1/3 after final inspection. It is important to review the contract carefully and ensure that the payment schedule is clear and reasonable. If the payment schedule does not cover your expenses, you should negotiate with the client to adjust it. You can also request a progress payment to cover unexpected costs or delays. It is not advisable to start work before the permit is in place, as you may not be able to enforce the contract if the permit is later denied. Always get everything in writing, including the contract and any amendments. Consider hiring an attorney to review the contract before you sign it. Maintain accurate records of all work performed and materials used. Let's delve deeper into these aspects, starting with mechanics lien laws. These laws are designed to safeguard the financial interests of contractors, subcontractors, laborers, and materials suppliers who contribute to the improvement of real property. They essentially provide a security interest in the property itself, allowing these parties to file a lien against the property if they are not paid for their services or materials. The specific requirements and procedures for filing a mechanics lien vary from state to state, so it's crucial to familiarize yourself with the laws in your jurisdiction. Generally, you'll need to provide preliminary notice to the property owner, file a lien claim within a specific time frame after completing the work, and potentially initiate a lawsuit to enforce the lien. Now let's explore contract law in the context of construction projects. A contract is a legally binding agreement between 2 or more parties outlining the terms and conditions of their arrangement. In a construction contract, this typically includes the scope of work, payment schedule, project timeline, and other important details. The contract serves as the primary source of rights and obligations for both the contractor and the property owner. It's essential to have a well-drafted contract that clearly defines all aspects of the project to avoid disputes and misunderstandings down the road. If the contract does not specify a payment schedule, the court may imply one based on industry standards or custom and usage. This means that the court will look to the prevailing practices in the construction industry to determine a reasonable payment schedule. This could involve considering factors such as the size and complexity of the project, the type of work being performed, and the customary payment terms in a local area. However, it's always best to have a clearly defined payment schedule in the contract itself to avoid any ambiguity or uncertainty. Moving on to industry standards. In the construction industry, it's common for contracts to specify payment in 3 stages. Firstly, a down payment upon signing the contract. Secondly, a progress payment after rough inspection. And thirdly, a final payment after final inspection. The down payment is typically a percentage of the total contract price and is intended to cover the contractor's initial expenses, such as materials and mobilization costs. The progress payment is made after a certain milestone has been reached, such as the completion of the framing or the installation of the plumbing. The final payment is made upon completion of the project and after the final inspection has been approved. Regarding your specific situation, it's important to review the contract carefully and ensure that the payment schedule is clear and reasonable. If the payment schedule does not cover your expenses, you should negotiate with the client to adjust it. You can also request a progress payment to cover unexpected costs or delays. It is not advisable to start work before the permit is in place, as you may not be able to enforce the contract if the permit is later denied. Obtaining the necessary permits is a crucial step in any construction project. It ensures that the work complies with local building codes and regulations. Starting work without a permit can result in fines, delays, and even the requirement to tear down the work that has been completed. Furthermore, if the permit is later denied, you may not be able to enforce the contract, leaving you without recourse for the work you have already performed. Now, let's discuss some additional considerations to protect yourself and your business. Firstly, always get everything in writing, including the contract and any amendments. A written contract provides a clear record of the agreement between the parties and can be used as evidence in case of a dispute. Any changes to the contract should be documented in writing and signed by both parties. Secondly, consider hiring an attorney to review the contract before you sign it. An attorney can help you understand the legal implications of the contract and ensure that it protects your interests. They can also identify any potential red flags or areas that need to be negotiated. Thirdly, maintain accurate records of all work performed and materials used. This includes invoices, receipts, timesheets, and other documentation that supports your claims for payment. Accurate records are essential for resolving disputes and for proving your entitlement to payment under the contract. In addition to these considerations, it's also important to be aware of the potential risks associated with construction projects and to take steps to mitigate those risks. This includes obtaining adequate insurance coverage, such as general liability insurance and workers' compensation insurance. It also involves implementing safety procedures to protect your workers and to prevent accidents on the job site. Furthermore, it's crucial to communicate effectively with the property owner throughout the project. Keep them informed of the progress of the work, any unexpected delays or problems, and any changes to the contract. Open and honest communication can help to build trust and to prevent misunderstandings. Remember, a successful construction project requires careful planning, clear communication, and a well-drafted contract. By taking these steps, you can protect your interests and ensure that you are fairly compensated for your work. Let's delve into the specifics of mechanics lien laws. These laws vary significantly from state to state, so it is imperative to understand the specific requirements in your jurisdiction. Some states have strict deadlines for filing a lien, while others have more lenient rules. It is also important to be aware of the different types of liens that are available, such as preliminary notices, notices of intent to lien, and actual mechanics liens. Each type of lien has its own specific requirements and consequences. A preliminary notice is typically required to be served on the property owner before work begins. This notice informs the owner that you are providing services or materials to the project and that you may have a right to file a lien if you are not paid. A notice of intent to lien is a formal notice that you intend to file a mechanics lien if you are not paid. This notice is typically required to be served on the property owner before filing the actual lien. The mechanics lien is the actual legal document that creates a security interest in the property. This lien must be filed with the county recorder's office in the county where the property is located. Once a mechanics lien is filed, it becomes a matter of public record and can affect the property owner's ability to sell or refinance the property. In order to enforce a mechanics lien, you typically need to file a lawsuit to foreclose on the lien. This lawsuit must be filed within a specific time frame after the lien is filed. If you are successful in the lawsuit, the court may order the property to be sold to satisfy the lien. Now let's discuss contract law in more detail. A construction contract should clearly define the scope of work, the payment schedule, the project timeline, and other important details. The scope of work should describe and detail the specific tasks that the contractor is responsible for performing. The payment schedule should specify the amount of money that will be paid at each stage of the project. The project timeline should specify the start and end dates for the project. The contract should also include provisions for dealing with unforeseen circumstances, such as changes to the scope of work, delays, and disputes. If there are any changes to the contract, they should be documented in writing and signed by both parties. This is known as a change order. A change order should describe the changes to the scope of work, the additional costs, and the revised project timeline. It is important to have a written change order before performing any additional work. In the event of a dispute, it is important to try to resolve the dispute through negotiation or mediation. If these methods are unsuccessful, you may need to resort to litigation. Litigation can be expensive and time-consuming, so it is best to avoid it if possible. Moving on to industry standards, it is important to be aware of the prevailing practices in the construction industry. This can help you to negotiate fair and reasonable terms in your contracts. For example, it is common for contractors to charge a markup on materials and labor. The markup is intended to cover the contractor's overhead and profit. The amount of the markup can vary depending on the type of work being performed and the local market conditions. It is also common for contractors to require a down payment before starting work. The down payment is intended to cover the contractor's initial expenses, such as materials and mobilization costs. The amount of the down payment can also vary depending on the size and complexity of the project. Regarding your specific situation, it is important to protect yourself from financial loss. This means that you should carefully review your contracts, obtain the necessary permits, and maintain accurate records. You should also consider obtaining insurance coverage to protect yourself from liability. Insurance coverage can protect you from financial loss in the event of an accident or injury on the job site. It is also important to communicate effectively with the property owner. Keep them informed of the progress of the work, any unexpected delays or problems, and any changes to the contract. Open and honest communication can help to build trust and to prevent misunderstandings. Finally, it is important to remember that you have rights as a contractor. If you are not paid for your work, you have the right to file a mechanic's lien. You also have the right to pursue legal action to recover the money that you are owed. Do not hesitate to seek legal advice if you are unsure of your rights. The information provided here is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. You should consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice regarding your specific situation. This guidance is intended to provide a comprehensive overview of the legal and practical considerations involved in construction contracts. By understanding these principles, you can protect your interests and ensure that you are fairly compensated for your work. Remember, knowledge is power, and a well-informed contractor is a successful contractor. Let's further refine our understanding of contract negotiation in the construction industry. Negotiation is a critical skill for contractors, as it allows them to secure favorable terms and protect their financial interests. When negotiating a contract, it is important to be prepared and to know what you are willing to concede. You should also be aware of your bottom line and be prepared to walk away from the deal if the terms are not acceptable. One of the most important aspects of contract negotiation is the payment schedule. You should carefully review the proposed payment schedule and make sure that it covers your expenses and allows you to make a reasonable profit. If the payment schedule is not acceptable, you should negotiate with the property owner to adjust it. You can also request a progress payment to cover unexpected costs or delays. Another important aspect of contract negotiation is the scope of work. You should carefully review the proposed scope of work and make sure that it is clear and concise. If the scope of work is not clear, you should negotiate with the property owner to clarify it. You should also make sure that the scope of work is realistic and that you have the resources to complete it. In addition to the payment schedule and the scope of work, there are other important terms that you should negotiate in your contract. These terms include the project timeline, the insurance requirements, and the dispute resolution process. The project timeline should be realistic and should allow you to complete the work on time and within budget. The insurance requirements should be reasonable and should protect you from liability. The dispute resolution process should be fair and should provide a mechanism for resolving disputes quickly and efficiently. When negotiating a contract, it is important to be professional and respectful. You should listen carefully to the property owner's concerns and try to find common ground. You should also be prepared to compromise. However, you should never compromise your ethics or your financial interests. If you are not comfortable negotiating a contract on your own, you should consider hiring an attorney to represent you. An attorney can help you to understand the legal implications of the contract and to negotiate the best possible terms. Remember, a well-negotiated contract is essential for a successful construction project. By taking the time to negotiate carefully, you can protect your interests and ensure that you are fairly compensated for your work. Let's explore the nuances of risk management in construction, focusing on proactive measures that can minimize potential liabilities and ensure project success. Risk management is an essential aspect of construction as it involves identifying, assessing, and mitigating potential risks that could negatively impact a project. These risks can range from financial losses due to unforeseen expenses or delays to legal liabilities arising from accidents or breaches of contract. One of the most important aspects of risk management is insurance coverage. You should obtain adequate insurance coverage to protect yourself from liability in the event of an accident or injury on the job site. You should also consider obtaining insurance coverage to protect yourself from property damage or theft. There are several different types of insurance coverage that are available to contractors, including general liability insurance, workers' compensation insurance, and property insurance. General liability insurance protects you from liability for bodily injury or property damage caused by your negligence. Workers' compensation insurance protects you from liability for injuries sustained by your employees on the job site. Property insurance protects you from loss or damage to your equipment and materials. In addition to insurance coverage, you should also implement safety procedures to protect your workers and to prevent accidents on the job site. This includes providing your workers with proper training and equipment and ensuring that they follow all safety regulations. You should also conduct regular safety inspections to identify and correct any potential hazards. Another important aspect of risk management is contract management. You should carefully review your contracts to identify any potential risks and to ensure that you are adequately protected. You should also make sure that your contracts comply with all applicable laws and regulations. In the event of a dispute, you should try to resolve the dispute through negotiation or mediation. If these methods are unsuccessful, you may need to resort to litigation. Litigation can be expensive and time-consuming, so it is best to avoid it if possible. By implementing a comprehensive risk management plan, you can protect your business from financial loss and legal liability. This will allow you to focus on your core business activities and to achieve your project goals. Furthermore, let's discuss strategies for managing cash flow in construction businesses, a critical element for maintaining financial stability and ensuring project completion. Cash flow management is essential for construction businesses as it allows them to pay their bills, invest in their business, and grow their operations. Poor cash flow management can lead to financial problems such as difficulty paying bills, inability to invest in new equipment, and even bankruptcy. One of the most important aspects of cash flow management is to accurately forecast your cash inflows and outflows. This will allow you to identify any potential cash shortages and to take steps to address them. You can forecast your cash inflows by tracking your sales and collections. You can forecast your cash outflows by tracking your expenses and payment. Another important aspect of cash flow management is to improve your collection practices. You should send invoices promptly and follow up with customers who are late in paying. You should also consider offering discounts for early payment. In addition to improving your collection practices, you should also manage your expenses carefully. You should track your expenses and identify areas where you can cut costs. You should also negotiate favorable terms with your suppliers. Another strategy for managing cash flow is to use financing options such as lines of credit or loans. These financing options can provide you with access to capital when you need it. However, you should use these financing options carefully, as they can increase your debt burden. Finally, it is important to regularly monitor your cash flow and to make adjustments as needed. This will allow you to identify any potential problems early on and to take steps to address them. By implementing effective cash flow management practices, you can improve your financial stability and ensure the long-term success of your construction business.